Whatever your sport, whatever your interest, it's all available in the Century series from WHSmith and Green Umbrella.
Austin had come to mean quality and value.
Newly knighted Sir Alec Isigonis, designer of the Mini, drove it into motoring history as the first British car ever to have passed the incredible production figure.
It is entirely appropriate that we should be standing here on the old course at St Andrews to introduce a century of golf, because it was here and at places like it along the eastern seaboard of Scotland that it all began. We are at the home of golf, and so we should be, to introduce a programme which charts the development of the Royal Ancient game during the 20th century. A lot has changed since Tom Morris Sr. and his son Tom Morris Jr. used to dominate golf in this area during the latter half of the 19th century, but it is also the case that much has remained the same. Golf is still the noble sport it always was, and none of the commercial pressures attached to it during the 20th century have done anything to alter that central fact. It is still a game in which honour prevails above all else. There is no point in winning if you haven't adhered to the spirit of the game, and, likewise, no disgracing losing if you have given your all to the cause.
He's going out left to the front of the green. Yeah, it must be. I don't believe it.
Above all else, it remains the ultimate test of character and mental fortitude. That's its great strength, and it always will be, no matter the level you play.
This is quite... I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness.
The origins of the game are shrouded in the mists of time. But what we do know is that as far back as the 15th century, a rudimentary form of the game was played in some areas of Scotland. The purpose of Scottish golf from its inception was to get the ball into a hole in the ground. But by contrast, other British and continental ball and stick games seem to have been aimed at targets above the ground. Dutch golf was played across country, in the streets of towns and on ice. The object of the game was to hit a target above the ground, obviously an easier skill than the global game. The great Winston Churchill once said that the aim of the game was to get a small ball into a very small hole with weapons singularly ill-suited for the purpose. Since the game was started, a succession of designers have come forward with ingenious clubs designed to extricate the ball from all sorts of situations And the only reason why we no longer have any use for them is that our courses are no longer so rough and unkempt as they once were. Prior to this century, golf courses were rudimentary facilities hewn from whatever land became available at the time. Holes were simply dug in suitable spots and the golfers were then left to get on with it. There was no such thing as a man-made hazard, because nature had provided more than enough of a challenge on its own. The Scottish landscape was ideally suited for the game. Indeed, golf was so popular that King James II of Scotland was forced to issue an Act of Parliament in 1457 banning the game because it was interfering with archery practice and thus the defence of the realm. At that time the game was confined to small enclaves near the eastern seaboard of Scotland, and so it was to remain for all of the next 4 centuries. Fast forward the clock to the second half of the 19th century and you will find that the game was still the preserve of a small band of Scots. Between 1850 and 1900 it remained a national pastime enjoyed by no more than a couple of thousand people. Entering the third quarter of the 19th century, it was certainly true to say that it was still a relatively insignificant sport, but that was about to change, and to change fast. The first big boom in golf came in the 30 or so years leading into the start of the 20th century, during which time the number of clubs in Britain grew from under 50 in 1870 to over 2,000 by 1900. That's a staggering growth rate, and would be even in this day and age, and is something which could not have happened but for the rapidly changing social and economic conditions at the time. This revolutionary growth in the game of golf occurred as the industrial and imperial expansion of the Victorian era brought a new prosperity to the English middle classes, who, armed with greater income and leisure time, started to emulate the royal family and spend their holidays in Scotland. Once there, it wasn't long before they came in contact with the game of golf, and then, hooked by its attractions, not much longer before they transported it back to England with them. When one looks to see what it was which caused the first big boom in golf in Britain, the first reason was undoubtedly the changing socio-economic conditions of the time, but not far behind that was the development of the gutta percha or gutty golf ball. Almost overnight this new product was to revolutionize the game. From times immemorial, all golfers had used traditional feathery golf balls which were made out of leather with feathers stuffed into them. Featheries were suitable for the task, and good enough to enable Alan Robertson to record a score of 87 round the old course at St Andrews using one of them. But they were expensive because they were so difficult to produce, and thus made it unlikely that all but the wealthiest would take up the game. Even the most experienced ball maker could make no more than 3 or 4 featheries a day, which meant that each cost 3 or 4 shillings at a time, when this was more than the price of a club, and also much the same as the average working man would make in a day. In contrast, the gutty balls which superseded them and were made out of gutta percha, which is a rubber-like substance taken from the tropical percha tree, could be mass-produced in moulds built for the purpose, and so cost a great deal less to make. All of a sudden, golf came down to a point which enabled a much wider cross-section of the population to try its hand at it. What's more, they perform much better than unpredictable featheries, so even the traditionalists were soon to start to use them with quite startling results. It was the first time that a change in equipment was to produce a transformation in the game, but it certainly was not to be the last. Later, the Haskell ball replaced the gutty around the turn of the century, heralding further progress in ball design, which continues to this day. The clubs which golfers used also continued to change as ideas and new materials continued to be developed. Once club makers used nothing but hickory for their shafts, but that was replaced by steel, which in turn is under threat from graphite and other modern man-made products. Nowadays, nothing is left to chance. Companies such as Callaway, Titleist, and all the other leading manufacturers spend hundreds of millions of dollars researching and developing new products, making them much more user-friendly than they have ever been before.
As a young man, I used to play golf with that distinct draw. Had that heavy old block of wood, all mass, weight evenly distributed. Now you've got titanium heads, the ball springs off quicker. 70 grams lighter shaft than I ever used in my life. Lightweight grips, no cord round here, no epoxy and all that stuff we had. And now I can't draw the ball to save my life.
Golf equipment and golf courses have continued to change as the 20th century has progressed, and so has the swing we use to hit the ball. Nowadays, Tiger Woods' swing bears little resemblance to the swing which young Tom Morris used to win his 4 successive Open Championships in the 1860s. And much of that has to do with the vast changes which have been made both to the courses we play on and especially the equipment we use.
To my mind, one of the crucial things that Scottish golf professionals did, those original club makers, when they designed the golf club, and it's just as true today, the bottom line of the golf club, the one we aim at the target, and the top line are totally different. Now, the golf swing that we're going to talk about is as it is because of the position of the ball, which is to the side of the player, and it's on the ground. Now, the fact that it is to the side of us, that means the swing is on an arc. It's not a straight line, and those original club makers, they realize that, and the top of the blade is open relative to the bottom to cultivate that arc of swing. But of course, down the century, and my first clubs were hickory shafted ones. I mean, I've got one in there that I actually played with. But we went from a ball that was difficult to get in the air, the old gutty ball, hickory shafts, then we went to steel shafts. Now we've got modern clubs today with metal woods, a contradiction in terms. So there have been tremendous changes in the equipment, and those changes have, in a subtle way, affected the way the game has been played and the swing itself.
As mentioned, the Morrises were the foremost players of their era. Young Tom was so good that he won the Open Championship 3 times in a row and therefore kept the trophy. As the century opened, 2 of the finest golfers of the time were J.H. Taylor and Harry Vardon, who along with James Braid made up the great triumvirate which dominated the game around the turn of the century. But it was Harry Vardon who, as well as winning 6 Opens, also left the greatest legacy, the Vardon grip.
You see, the whole object of a golf grip is to get the club to arrive square to where you want the ball to go at maximum speed. And the Vardon grip, you know, the 2 V's pointing to the right shoulder with the little finger of the right hand overlapping the first there, binding the hands together. Of course, there are variations on that. I mean, a Jack Nicklaus interlocks. A great players, David Rees in my generation, double-handed. Harry Vardon didn't only bring the Harry Vardon grip to the game, he was what I would call the first of the upright swingers. That old golf ball that was a job to get in there, all the players up to the Vardon stage were very rotary players. Certainly his contemporaries were all rotary, but he was the first of the upright swingers. He used to bend the left arm and straighten it in the hitting area and got actually 2 bites of the cherry. There was a straightening of the arm and the wrist. Very long, straight hitter.
Great players in golf seem to come in threes. In the 20s and early 30s, there was another great threesome.
Now, between the wars...
Well, we had Bobby Jones, Walter Hagen and Gene Sarazen.
Correct. Again, another threesome. Now, to me, Gene Sarazen made another great donation to the game of golf when he designed the bunker club with a flange at the bottom. And that skids through just like throwing pebbles onto the beach.
That rounded sole.
Correct. And suddenly everybody hitherto had been trying to get out of a bunker. Then suddenly they're all trying to get near the hole out of a bunker. And as we see today, and you yourself, geniuses out of a bunker, they're all trying to hold them these days. Gene Sarazen brought that about.
In In 1926, the great amateur Bobby Jones became the first player to win both Opens in the same year. The British Open was at Lytham St Anne's. Bobby Jones' domination of the golfing scene in the 20s won him an immense following in the States and in Great Britain. He seemed almost invincible. He started early, winning the Georgia State Open as a 14-year-old, and became such a great golfer that he was reputed to give other great players such as Tommy Armour 2 or 3 strokes around in exhibition matches to make a go of it. In 1927 he won the British Open again, this time at St Andrews, a course he grew to love. Earlier in his career, in 1921, he had picked up his ball halfway through a round at St Andrews and stalked off, something he regretted for years afterwards. In 1930 came his crowning glory. He won the British Open at Hoylake, the US Amateur Championship, the British Amateur and the US Open, a Grand Slam that has never been equalled.
There he is, the greatest golfer the game has ever known. And here comes Roger Weatherid across the deadly Swilcan Burn. Bobby is bunkered here, but he doesn't worry about a little thing like that. He played out to within 4 feet of the pin. What a scramble. The crowd of over 15,000 spectators absolutely overwhelmed the stewards at times. There's the famous clubhouse of the Royal and Ancient, the Mecca of golf. And here's Bobby, realizing his life's ambition. He's got it at last, the one golfing honor that had so far eluded his grasp.
Jones was both an elegant swinger in the style of the English players such as Harry Vardon, but also a tough competitor. As well as his major triumphs, he also played in 10 Walker Cup matches, winning all bar one. In the year of his Grand Slam, Bobby Jones retired at the age of 28. He wished to spend more time progressing a whole raft of other business opportunities, including the establishment of the Augusta National Golf Club, now home of the Masters. And, anyway, how could he possibly top that Grand Slam?
Hip, hip. Here I have to present him with the gold medal for winning the qualifying round first. And then, Mr. Jones, I'd like to give you the medal for so ably winning our championship today, sir.
The other great of that era was Walter Hagen. Hagen came to golf fairly late, but was an instant success. He won 2 US Opens and 4 British Opens, but probably his greatest achievement was winning 4 of his 5 PGAs in a row from 1924 to 1927. Hagen was a larger-than-life character, the first golfer to take fashion seriously, usually to be seen in colour-coordinated outfits and black and white brogues. He drove large and expensive cars, and it was his ambition to live like a millionaire, even if, at times, particularly early in his career, he didn't quite have the funds to sustain such a lifestyle. As a golfer, he played to the gallery. A bit wayward off the tee, he was known as a great putter, superb scrambler, and like Saracen, a fearless bunker player.
I'm reminded of Walter Hagen, I suppose, of all the people I wish I'd have seen, not because I thought he was the best player, but he was the character. Fast greens in those days, no water on the greens. If you pitched on the green, you went through, and he played into the bunkers on purpose, because even in his day, he was big enough and confident enough to get it out and knock it stiff and get his par, even though he couldn't get on the green in one.
The 20s were also renowned for the beginning of the most famous golf team tournament in the world, the Ryder Cup. No century of golf would be complete without recognizing the efforts of Sam Ryder, who made his fortune selling penny packets of seed. Sam also liked golf, even hiring his own professional, Abe Mitchell, who stands atop the Ryder Cup, the gold trophy competed for by British and American teams. The first official match was in 1927, and it was the British team who endured the week-long Atlantic crossing to Worcester, Massachusetts. The visitors were probably a little surprised by the American victory. April 1929, Moortown Golf Club, Leeds. Among the American visitors was Gene Sarazen.
I remember one thing about that match. I was in the washroom with Hagen, and he didn't know that Duncan was in one of those seats in there, and Hagen says to me, he says, "What do you know?" He says, "I found out where Duncan's is going to play, and I'm playing against him. That's a sure point." Well, Duncan went out and beat him 10-9.
More precisely, 10-8. This was the largest margin ever achieved by anyone in Ryder Cup matches. The Scotsman Duncan, seen here with Sam Ryder and Hagen, had been underestimated by the American to his cost. Duncan had, after all, won the 1920 British Open at Deal, and on his day he was a match for anybody. Other British victories followed. Archie Compson defeated Gene Sarazen 6-4. The young Henry Cotton beat Al Watrous 4-3. Hagen's team were defeated 7 points to 5, and it was the British captain Duncan who collected the cup from Sam Ryder. A pattern had been set. In American conditions, they won. In ours, we did. British golfers tended to play bump and run golf. Americans, playing on courses with less rough in front of the tees and more in front of the greens, played target golf. In 1933, we regained the cup, but only by the narrowest of margins, 6.5 to 5.5. The Americans were getting stronger. The steel shaft had become standard. American pros were playing more tournaments, and they had more good players to choose from. In 1937, even the great Henry Cotton couldn't save us. The American team beat us on our home ground for the first time. Britain had to wait another 20 years for our next victory. If Sarazen, Hagen and Jones were the American greats of that era, then Europe's hero was Henry Cotton.
A huge gallery followed Cotton, who for the first time in 11 years laid the American bogey. Bruce, who finished second, left him for his last round 83 strokes to win, and in spite of a high wind, this seemed easy. But Cotton was far from well. However, he went round in 79, equal to the record of 283 for the championship, and won by 5 strokes.
Cotton won at Sandwich in 34, and again at Carnoustie in 37, and at Muirfield in 48.
Now, Henry Cotton was quite the best of the European golfers. Now, he went to America in 1929 and played with those great American players and came back. He learned to draw the ball there. As a matter of fact, he overdid it a little bit, but Henry was the one that influenced me, if you like. I was taken to my first championship when I was a boy of 14, and I saw Henry Cotton. And from there on, I was Henry Cotton. A particularly weak grip, very open club face at the top, and a very much hands and arms player. Swore by applying the club with his hands and arms. Now, in actual fact, he had a wonderful coordinated body action as well, but in his mind, it was all hands and arms.
Another threesome in golf, John, who dominated an era. We've got Ben Hogan, Sam Snead, Byron Nelson. How good were they? I mean, was Ben Hogan the best ball striker of all time?
He would be in my first 3. But they were 3. I saw them a lot, of course, and fortunately for me, I played with Byron, and Byron's a great friend even today. He's even older than me, and there aren't many people older than me, Bernard. But I played 3 rounds, 3 days in a row with Byron in 1955. He had a particular golf swing. It wasn't orthodox, very straight. Now, usually that would be too steep, but in the hitting area, his knees flexed, and he widened the bottom of the swing, so it was better than normal. A very, very straight hitter. It was at a time in my life when I thought I could play, but he made me feel like 24 handicap.
He won 11 tournaments in a row on the American tour.
Correct. And again, so that for me, if I'm asked, and I often ask, who's the best player I've ever seen, I would say Byron.
At Ardmore, Pennsylvania, the U.S. Open produces one of the most thrilling tourneys in golfing history and one of the most inspiring comebacks. Among the contestants here in quest of the game's greatest honor are Gene Sarazen, the old pro, still going strong, and young Lee Mackey Jr., who carded a record 64 on the first round. Slamming Sammy Snead starts in a thriller that ends up in a 3-way tie. Next day, in an 18-hole playoff, little Ben Hogan tees off in competition with Lloyd Mangrum and George Fazio.
If Byron Nelson was the straightest hitter, the great ball striker, then the bravest must be Ben Hogan. After winning the US Open in 1948, he was terribly injured in a car crash. It was thought he would never walk again.
Little Ben Hogan, who doctors said would never play again, makes a remarkable comeback. Here with Mrs. Hogan is the US Open champion.
After winning the US Open in 1950, he won it again the following year.
At Oakland Hills, golfing's greats tackle one of the toughest courses ever used for the US National Open. South African Bobby Locke starts the final day, one up. And here's Ben Hogan, twice Open champion. Hogan's hopes seem none too bright as he starts off 5 strokes behind the leader. Meanwhile, Ben Hogan puts towards a sensational final round, voted one of the finest ever seen. It's a near miss, but the iron-nerved Hogan quickly puts it away. British Open champion Bobby Locke comes home to the 18th. He's still led going into the final round, but as he sinks his putt, he finishes a respectable third. But the amazing Ben Hogan drives onto the 18th green with a gallery of more than 10,000 cheering him on. Hogan putts, trying for an incredible 67, and it's in. So far, no one had beaten par of 70, but Hogan finishes 3 under. And his sensational last round wins Ben Hogan his 3rd National Open Championship.
In 1953, he won the British Open at Carnoustie at his first and only attempt.
Once again, Carnoustie is the scene of the Open Golf Championship.
I played in that Open at Carnoustie, and on the last day at Carnoustie, those eras, there was a draw. The leaders did not go out last, and just by fortune, if you like, I'm playing 3 matches behind Ben Hogan. Now, for the people who know Carnoustie, if you stand on the 3rd tee at Carnoustie to play down the 3rd, you're looking straight down this par 5, 6th, and I promise you, morning and afternoon, I looked down Hogan's drive at the 6th, out of bounds on the left, a bunker about a 1/3 of the way in on the fairway. Hogan went between the out of bounds and the bunker. Nobody else playing that week took that line, known as Hogan's Alley. Well, it wasn't a risk for him. He ripped it straight down there at the out of bounds just opposite the bunker, and when it looked to be going out of bounds, it just came round the back of the bunker.
The last of the 50s triumvirate was Sam Snead. Of all these players, Snead had the most natural and probably the most powerful golf swing. He won the Open at St Andrews in 1946 and the Augusta Masters in 1949.
And after him comes slamming Sammy Snead. Snead, regarded by many as the uncrowned king of golf, is behind by 5 strokes at the halfway mark, but makes a grand comeback. At the 16th hole, he tries a long one. Watch the fan in the foreground. His reaction tells the story of a near miss. At the final hole, it's a 20-footer. Snead can do it in 3 and still win, but he does it the champion's way. A brilliant performance brings Sammy Snead the golfing prize of the year, and congratulations from veteran Bobby Jones.
Snead, you see, had the slowest golf swing, and the thing sort of went up in there, and then it went on a bit, and then it took very slow, and the ball took off slow. Now, Hogan, if people didn't see Hogan, it was like lightning. The ball went out like a shot out of a gun barrel. So different ways of being great.
Into the 50s, and British golf, in particular our Open, was to be dominated by 2 men, the South African Bobby Locke and Australian Peter Thomson.
Joins the illustrious James Braid, Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen. At Sandwich, South Africa's Bobby Locke in +4s and Ireland's Harry Bradshaw set out on the playoff that will decide golfing's most coveted prize, the Open Championship.
Locke was not a natural athlete in the style of Snead, but a player who made the most of what talent he had, and probably one of the greatest putters of all time.
To 12 by the time they reach the 36th green. The duel is all over, for although the Irishman gets a 4, the title is Locke's, even if he starts playing marbles now. The South African sinks it for 4, and for the first time in his prize-winning career, nets the greatest honor, the Open Championship. Now it's the 18th, and excitement is mounting. Playing perfect golf, Locke, behind until the 14th hole, has now regained the lead. And now for the last hole. Tough, but it's the luck of the game. Anyway, he's beaten the record by 4 strokes, finishing 2 ahead of his nearest competitor. A memorable end to a magnificent contest.
Peter Thomson, Locke's great rival, was a superb links player. player with a cool temperament and a simple swing. He won a total of 5 British Opens, a figure matched in recent times only by Tom Watson. 1957, a rare Ryder Cup victory at Limerick.
Christian O'Connor drives off for Britain in the final day of the Ryder Cup match. Up against men like America's Ed Fergal, even if all their putts don't come off, nobody gives the British team under skipper Di Rees much of a chance. After all, it's 24 years since we won the Ryder Cup, and Britain, or more correctly Great Britain and Era, start the singles 3-1 down. Here's America's Doug Ford. But American skipper Jackie Burke and his team, normally brilliant golfers, find the pace too hot, while the British players, including Burke's opponent Peter Mills in his first ever Ryder Cup match, are playing like champions. Hole by hole, the pattern of victory emerges. Britain's Harry Bradshaw has a tough battle with Dick Mayer, but in the end he manages to halve his match, in spite of some bad luck on the greens. The Americans capture a single game, but one by one, all the other Britons are the lead. At the 12th green, Di Rees sinks his last putt to beat Ed Fergal 7 up and 6 to play. The crowd scrambles for a ball that deserves to be in a glass case on somebody's mantelpiece. A souvenir of an historic day when by 7.5 points to 4.5, Di Rees and his merry men put an end to nearly a quarter of a century of defeat. Says Di, it must be the greatest shot in the arm British golf has ever had.
But we are fast approaching the 60s and another great threesome. I mean, it is funny how it's come in threes. As Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus. I mean,
yeah.
How good was Arnold Palmer?
Well, you see, Arnold Palmer to me has led to a Seve Ballesteros. These are the people who thumped it as far as they possibly could, were wonderful recovery players. Mentally they were as tough because they always anticipated success. They had marvellous imagination for playing shots. And of course, Arnold was a wonderful putter and holer out. I think we in Britain should be so grateful to Arnold because the British Open in the 1950s was dying a death. Nobody used to come and play. It was all just confined to Bobby Locke and Peter Thompson used to win it most of the time. We all failed because we were scared stiff of winning the Open. And then suddenly Arnold, at the peak of his career, came and played in the 1960 Open, lost by 1 shot to Kel Nagel, the Centenary Open, but he came back and won the next 2 years, and suddenly all the Americans came and it revived our Open.
Here is Nagel with 2 to win the championship. Oh, he doesn't get it. He's got to get it in now. He's got to get it in, take trouble. He's got it. Well done, well done. And so Kelvin Nagel of Australia wins the Centenary Open Championship by 1 stroke from Arnold Palmer of the United States.
Typical of Palmer's fearless approach was the 1960 US Open.
At Denver, the biggest plum of all, the U.S. Open is contested again. An amazing golfer named Arnold Palmer, the Masters champion, who started the last round with 14 players ahead of him in the standing, plays the first 9 holes in a record equaling 30. Veteran Ben Hogan falters at the brink of a 5th championship. Disappointment also comes to the leader for the first 3 rounds, Mike Suchak, the ex-football player from Duke. He takes a 75 for the final 18. Amateur champion Jack Nicklaus earns 2nd place with a 282 total. Palmer is the biggest name. From the edge of the last green, he rolls his shot right up beside the hole. Palmer's final putt for a sensational closing 65. He came from behind like the man of steel that he is to wrap up the Open with a 72-hole, 280 score.
And here at last, at the 18th, Palmer would win the championship if he could hole out in 1 more putt. And like a born champion, he made no mistake.
Palmer was a great character, good-looking, a big hitter, and to this day still probably the most popular figure who has ever graced the game. He was an exhibitionist, but above all an entertainer, and the crowds loved him for that. It was his rivalry with Nicklaus and Player that, in a sense, changed the nature of professional golf.
The famed Augusta National Course, with its majestic beauty, draws the vast gallery familiar to the Masters. The defending champion, Jack Nicklaus, turns in a sizzling final 18. He was 9 strokes behind the leader after 54 holes. His 5 under par 67 gives him a 282 and a tie for second place. The sensational young Nicklaus began his surge too late to catch Palmer. And here's the golfer who is the master today, Arnold Palmer, paired with Dave Marr, who takes the pressure of playing with the champion in his stride. This 25-foot birdie putt gives Marr the second-place tie with Nicklaus. But oh, that man Palmer. Here's his wind-up putt. He gets a 70, which added to 2 69s and a 68 gives him a 276, 12 under par, and the Masters by 6 shots.
Where once the pros used to compete for relatively small purses, all of a sudden the game started producing its first millionaires. Men like Mark McCormack, aided and abetted by the advent of the TV age, sensed the selling power of Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, and after them a host of modern stars. But Palmer's cavalier approach wasn't always successful.
The Masters is on the line at Augusta, Georgia, and the 25-year-old South African Gary Player is the exciting sensation. After 54 holes, he has a 4-stroke lead going into the final 18. In second place is talented defender Arnold Palmer. Gary Player, blazing a remarkable trail in the last 3 months, sees his advantage in the Masters whittled down by the time he reaches the final hole. He has a 70 coming out of the trap. Palmer is 3 holes behind and going good. Player is not too happy, though he records a par 4 and a 280 total. As Palmer hits his second shot on the 18th, he needs only a par to win. He traps it, the same trap which Player earlier blasted out of. It's well known few are better at hitting from the sand, so Palmer's followers are not concerned. But he has exploded too strongly, burying the ball far across the green. It'll be impossible to get that par 4 now, but he still has a chance to tie Player with a bogey 5. He didn't get near enough, and here's the end of the golf drama. Palmer with a double bogey 6 is finishing with a 281 and has to settle for a second-place tie. Gary Player becomes the first foreign entrant to win the Masters.
Well, I was playing with Arnold Palmer, who, as you know, was the All-American hero. And there were 100,000 people there, and there were 2 people pulling for me, my wife and my dog. So it was very difficult, you can imagine, with everybody screaming and pulling for Arnold. But I accepted the challenge and went on to beat him, which gave me a great thrill, knowing that I was against such, stacked up against such great odds.
Youngest man ever to win the Open, over 72 holes, Gary Player of South Africa received the most coveted trophy in the game after a great triumph.
Player's first major was the 1959 British Open.
4 rounds of Muirfield settled the hash of a lot of fine golfers, former winners Bobby Locke and Henry Cotton included.
Player is a self-made golfer who has sustained his career at the top longer than anyone else before or since.
I played for years as a young man when I first came over here in 1955. They said when I won at Sunningdale was 64, 64, 68, 70, 72, which was a record at that time in the world. It was only tied about 3 years ago. They said this guy will never last. And I can't blame them, because I used to swing the club like this at the top, see? But I had a big body movement which counteracted for it. My back was going to break at some time or other.
Any youngster watching this program, that the Gary Player is the perfect model to have the temperament, be a winner, think big, expect to do well, dedication. 2, get a good sound repeating golf swing, must repeat. And then Gary got those two things, but he suddenly is playing with Arnold and Jack, and they're hitting it 30 yards beyond him, so he decided to get fit. I've stayed in hotels when he's been running up and down the stairs all evening to get strong because he couldn't go out onto the streets in certain places.
And this is the winning shot or not for Gary Player, his third to the 18th.
One of Player's most spectacular triumphs came in '68 at Carnoustie, where Gary faced a similar situation to Van der Velde in the 1999 Open.
Weight put up by the green, and it's right on the middle of the green. A very wonderful shot by Gary Player, and it can't be more than 25, 30 feet from the hole, dead on line, just short. Oh, steady. No, it's all right. I misjudged it and he didn't. And how pleased he is with that one. That's the sort of length of putt that you want to have to win the Open Championship.
I was faced with the same predicament that Van der Velde was. In 1968, I had Nicklaus by 2 shots. I hit off with a 3-iron, another 3-iron, and a 9-iron onto the green. It was the saddest thing I personally have ever seen on a golf course, but also the most stupid thing I've ever seen on a golf course.
Palmer and Player would be fantastic players in any generation, but their great rival Jack Nicklaus would undoubtedly be the greatest player of whatever era he played in.
We're talking the century. Jack Nicklaus, for me, has to be the player of the century. But that, Jack, forgive me, was in spite of his golf swing, not because of it. In Jack's first book, Jack Nicklaus, says John Jacobs accuses me of what John Jacobs calls the American disease. Jack got too upright for most people, but he had such a marvelous temperament that he was able to win. He was the calmest man there on the 72nd hole with a chance. Great brain, a competitor. I mean, when you think of the ones he's won, but he's been in the first 3 of the majors 50-some times. Amazing. So the best golfer of the century, Jack Nicklaus.
Jack Nicklaus, the amazing 22-year-old from Columbus, Ohio. Calm as can be, he's delivering his approach shot at the final hole in a playoff for the United States Open Championship at Oakmont, Pennsylvania. The 2-time U.S. amateur champion is opposing no less than Arnold Palmer in the playoff. A mighty big assignment for a young man in his initial season as a pro. Nicklaus goes boldly for the hole. This would give him a 1-under par 70, but even though he misses, Palmer has only a last and very slim hope. When he too misses, he casually taps the ball twice to hole out, conceding the victory by picking up the coin with which Nicklaus has marked his putt. However, the officials point out that you can't concede a putt in stroke play. Everything must be holed out to be counted. Nicklaus obliges and wins with a 71 to Palmer's 74. His first victory as a pro is the biggest prize, the U.S. Open. Final round of the Masters at Augusta, Georgia. 3-time winner Sammy Snead almost gets a record 4th, but the old slammer, just short of his 51st birthday, ties for 3rd place. Other champions fall too. Favored Arnold Palmer, last year's winner, plays his best round of the current tournament, but after a final 71, he's in a 9th place tie. It's the lanky Californian Tony Lima making his first Masters appearance who really fires the gallery. That 25-foot birdie putt on the 18th is his big one. That gives Lima a 287 total to lead the Masters, a lead he enjoys for about 30 minutes. Then the tension builds, for young Jack Nicklaus is now playing the 18th, needing only a par to clinch the title. He whistles his second shot to the green, and you can see the ball drop 30 feet from the pin. Nicklaus makes his approach putt. He knocks it 3 feet past the pin. Nicholas sinks it. And by the margin of 1 stroke, at 286 total, he's the new Masters champion. Arnold Palmer helps him put on the green jacket, symbolic of Masters victory. At 23, Jack Nicklaus from Columbus, Ohio, is the youngest golfer to win the title.
In 1963, Nicklaus also won the US PGA, but had to wait until 65 for his next major, the Masters. Even at that early age, Jack seemed to be focused on the majors.
He had such an incredible mind, and those 20 majors, being able to just do it. And he didn't really play that many events, you see, when he was at his best, and he sort of had it all figured out that you couldn't if you wanted to focus. He focused his attention on majors. I think it's rather interesting that pre-1960, when Jack and Arnold came on the scene, majors weren't of the consequence that they've become since then. I mean, Hogan won a British Open, never defended. Snead won a British Open, never defended. Majors were too close together for players to travel and do. Hogan didn't play in the PGA that year because he couldn't, you know, the year he won the three of the 4 majors.
But from the 60s onwards, it was possible to challenge for titles all over the world. In '66, Nicklaus made it the Grand Slam of majors, winning the British Open.
But Jack, you know, was fantastic, and the way he was focused just on those, and was able to bring the best out of himself. It's one thing to focus on him, but it's the other thing to have your game in shape and be ready for him. And it's an incredible record, and he's a great guy, and as well, you know, with it all, he was he carried the mantle of success as well as anybody I've ever seen.
But Jacklin himself had similar aspirations.
I always had an ambition as a young man to be a great player. One of my great ambitions was to win the British Open, certainly.
His dream was a little way off when he won the Lincolnshire Boys Championship when he was just 13 years old. He won it again the following year and again the year after, on that occasion breaking the course record. The next year, at only 16, he won the Lincolnshire Open, 9 shots ahead of the top pro. It was almost to be expected that Tony Jacklin would at some point realise his ambition to win a major Open.
Oh, what a corker. My word, that was a fine drive. Look at it, miles up the middle. Oh, what a tremendous drive. Oh, it may drop in here. And there is the shortest shot that ever won a championship. And Jacklin is the winner.
Tony Jacklin, 24 years old, winner of the 1969 British Open at Royal Lytham, St Anne's. Partnering Jacklin on that final round was another golfing great, Bob Charles from New Zealand. Bob was the first left-hander to win the British Open, something he had achieved 6 years earlier in 1963.
Oh, what a fine one to finish with.
Tony Jacklin continued his success, and in 1969 is in the Ryder Cup team at Royal Birkdale. He's one down at the 17th to Jack Nicklaus and needs this 45-foot putt to stay alive.
And if ever he needed a putt to go in the hole, it's this one. And it is, it's in! It's in! Well, what a thing to do at a time like this. And what a lot now rests on this, the outcome of this putt from Jack Nicklaus. No, it's astray, and Tony Jacklin has won this hole with a 3, and the match now is all square.
But 1 hole to play, and it's Jacklin versus Nicklaus for the Ryder Cup.
a very fine, aggressive drive by Jacklin. Nicholas now. And he stood on his toes and gave that a bit extra for luck. That's fine for Nicholas. Nicholas first. Well, he won't see where that is, but we can. They're equidistant from the hole. You couldn't ask for more than this. So just the two of them, they've got a putt each to come. And these putts will decide the entire Ryder Cup match of 1969. Now, anguished Jacklin. Nicholas has this long one to win the Ryder Cup for his side. Oh, he's gone a long way past. The awful thought that by missing this one, he might go into history as losing the Ryder Cup. Well done indeed. There won't be a single man here who wanted him to miss it. And it's a half.
That famous sporting draw in '69 was the British team's last moment of glory. They lost the next 4 Ryder Cups. Even Jack Nicklaus argued that the match be expanded to generate greater competition, something that was finally put into effect in 1979. Jacklin was to go firmly into the history books at Hazeltine, Minnesota, the venue of the 1970 US Open. He led the field after the first round with a 71. He finished the competition an amazing 7 shots clear of his nearest rival, Dave Hill.
Well, it was very, very windy the first round, and half the field, half the competition got blown away, of course. And I managed to shoot, I think, a 71, which led by 2, and that really set the scene for the week. I maintained that lead. I was playing good, solid golf and putting beautifully, a thing that I can only just remember doing.
Look at this last putt.
When I was playing the 13th hole the third day, and I had a 6, triple bogey 6, and from that point on it was like Trevino had seen some, I don't know, something happened to him. He went and birdied the last 5 holes.
Go on then.
Well done. Trevino at the 15th, a longish putt for a birdie 3. Oh, and he's done it again. He really is making a move, this man now. You've seen 2 magnificent putts from Trevino on the last 2 greens. You've seen those last 2 putts of Trevino's. He's got this for a birdie 3. So he's got this to stay ahead of them. Looking good too. Oh, what a super putt. It really is tremendous stuff, isn't it? Here's Trevino. Nasty bunker shot at 16, slightly downhill. No follow through, squirting it up. Oh my God, straight in the hole for a 2. Now, if you're ever going to win championships, well, those are the sort of things that happen to you. That was destined for 10 or 15 yards over the green, and it took one skip and a bounce, and it went straight in the hole. Anyway, well, that's what good living shows. This is Trevino. 2 putts from here, and he'll have his 4th successive birdie, and it's looking like 1 putt of it runs. Oh, it's just 9 inches short. Well, it would have been 3 birdies and an eagle, but as it is, that's 4 birdies in a row for Lee Trevino, who's now 5 under, and yeah, beautifully done.
On the 18th, I was actually furthest away on the green. It's a long green, the 18th green at Muirfield. And he was off the back, and although he was closer than me, as a gesture, you know, often in professional golf, we say, well, I'll just come up, all right? And that's what he said to me. And, of course, he did and chipped in again. And, of course, then we got into the last day, and I did feel after that 3rd round, I thought, well, he had everything going for him today. And I think this was the real crux of it all. And I thought, well, maybe tomorrow, if you're just patient, it'll be your day and you'll get the breaks. And, of course, I did feel that I'd played throughout that day, right up to the 17th hole, better than he had. And I was concentrating very well. I was determined, and I really felt on the 17th that I'd broke him. He hooked off the tee into the bunkers on the left. He played out sideways from a horrible spot and then hooked again. And Lee never hooks you know, under. It was the pressure, I'm sure, that got to him. And then he popped it over the green. And of course, we all know then what happened. He looked as if he'd given up, and he chipped in.
Chipped it in for 5. Three times in 2 days. Under pressure that is incredible, Trevino has chipped it in. He has not only missed it, he has put it about 2 feet to 2.5 feet past, and this is by no means a certainty. Tony Jacklin, who a moment ago looked like all he had to do was get down in 2 from 40 yards to have a certain victory, now has got to make this to go into the last hole level with his playing partner Lee Trevino. He's pulled it off to the left. Never gave it a chance. So Jacklin takes 4 to get down. Lee Trevino finished with a superb approach shot at the 18th to take the title, British Open champion in 1972.
Now, Lee Trevino, for me, was the ball controller. Now, golf swings, yes, but the golf swing has to apply the club in such a way, the face, the path, the angle, that you know where the ball's going to go. And of all the people in the century that wouldn't be a good-looking swinger, but he has to be in the top 10 of the century because he could make the ball perform. He could control the ball.
Trevino actually aims at this cameraman here. Like this, he aims here to hit it there. He takes the club out there and he reroutes it over here, and nobody's hit more fairways than Trevino. Now Arnold Palmer says, damn it, that Trevino. He says, I hate that fade. He says, I can talk to a hook, but I cannot talk to a fade. Arnold Palmer aims to the right, and hits that damn hook in there all the time, you see?
The 70s, and Player continues to win majors. 1974, and Gary is playing his approach shot to the 18th green on the final day of the British Open.
ladies' locker room. Well, courageous, but through the green.
There's Oosterhuis. We see how close to the wall he is. And now this must be the first Open, which is concluded with a left-handed shot. See how good he is with a left hand. Not at all bad. And so player finishes with a 5, and there's the little winning stroke for player. Winner of the Masters this year in Augusta, now winner of the British Open. Always said he wanted to be the greatest golfer in the world, and really now he can make great claim to have achieved his ambition, because who can say that he's better than player now?
That same year, Gary is in America for a chance to win his second US Masters title. His approach shot to the 17th guarantees another birdie.
Absolutely out of this world.
And at the final hole, another shot putt to win the 1974 US Masters. It's 1977. Tom Watson and Jack Nicklaus at the British Open at Turnberry.
It might be one. Oh, would you believe that? Well, I've seen many things in my life, but fancy taking the putter from 12 feet off the green in the semi-rough, race it down the hill, leave the pin in, and he's holed it from all of 25 yards.
On to the final hole. Watson's birdie on the 17th puts him one shot clear.
All or nothing.
He's just taken a cautious iron to the middle of the fairway. Nicklaus with a driver.
And he's chopped it. He's chopped it away down the right-hand side. He's disgusted with it. He turns away, and it's careering into the rough. I don't think it will reach the bushes. No, it's Watson who played conservatively with an iron from the tee. His second shot first. That was the swing of a confident man, wasn't it? Looked beautiful.
Nicklaus knows he has to get this on the green to stand any chance at all.
And he's got it on the green. Can't be, can it? This for the championship. Yes, well. It was absolute drama to the end. I don't think I've seen anything better than that in my life, and neither of you. Absolutely wonderful.
In another exciting final, Jack's in the clubhouse and in the lead, so can only stand and watch as Tom again shows his mettle when things go a bit wrong. This time it's the 1982 US Open at Pebble Beach, California. It's the 17th hole and Watson's in the rough.
Generally plays very well. Of course, the conditions now that he has to play the shot test anyone, so we'll just have to see. Looks good. Looks good. Do you believe it? Do you believe
What can you say? Tom Watson pitching into the hole for a birdie has taken the lead in the U.S. Open. One more par and he's finally won it. We said high drama on the shores of Carmel Bay.
Watson takes a 3-wood on the final hole.
The big tree.
Okay, but it's...
Ooh, it's long. It's bad, Bob.
Well on pass. Well on pass, Bob.
It's a tense time for Nicklaus.
Here he's not waiting too long. He's just taking an iron.
Like the final hole at the 1977 British Open, Watson plays an iron for safety.
Safe enough, though. But now we see how far he is from the green. Quite a long way, and when you think of the closeness of that pin to the front, there's still a lot of work here to do for Tom Watson if he's going to beat this man to be the 1982 US Open champion.
The disappointed face of Jack Nicklaus, but still watching.
Not disappointed yet. There's still some golf left, yeah.
One that Watson must put on the green now.
Good looking shot in the air. Let's see. Good.
There you have it.
All right.
Should be able to get down in two. Should he win this first national championship, so many people expect that might really open the floodgates for him. There may be many more to come.
Tom just needs to get down in two now to win the US Open for the first time.
And probably no one tries any harder than this young man right here.
What a way to win. What a way to finish. After bogeying the 16th hole, Tom Watson has birdied 17 from off the green, birdied 18. He wins it by 2 from the greatest golfer of them all, Jack Nicklaus. His first U.S. Open. Happy Father's Day, Tom Watson.
The following year, Tom's back in Britain, and it's the 1983 Open at Royal Birkdale. After a brilliant drive, he has this shot to the green.
Look at that. Those are the shots that champions are made of, my word.
The defending champion knows the Open is his for a second year in succession.
Bert Neal, the famous old photographer there, getting another snap for the album. Oh, was it? Oh, Harry Varden said, well, you've got 2 for it, take 'em. And I think Tom's going to do just that. Yes, he has. The defending champion wins again.
The great Jack Nicklaus continued to dominate through the 60s and 70s, more US Opens in 67 and 72, and in 1970 the British Open at St Andrews in a playoff with Duke Sanders, driving the green at the 18th hole.
And 2 shots later, Nicklaus is champion again.
Oh, he's got it, and that's it, and that settles it.
Jack's also been a master of the Masters, winning it no less than 6 times, the last in 1986 at the age of 46.
Now, up the hill. I think that's one of the greatest putts I've ever seen in my life.
To win the Masters tournament, Hart, people don't realize that the way you set up this golf tournament, the way you set up the golf course, the way you have the pin placements, the way you have the speeds of the green, it's really, frankly, is a young man's tournament. Because you really have to have super nerves to be able to putt the greens. They are very, very difficult.
Unbelievable. Your 20th. It's a pleasure for me to put it on your great champion.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Bernhard.
Congratulations, Jack.
Thank you, Hart. Thank you.
I think the greatest golfers of all time were Sam Snead and Ben Hogan, but the greatest scorer that ever lived was Jack Nicklaus. And my bank manager wants to know how I'm scoring, not if I have a beautiful swing.
Running Jack close at the 1986 Masters was a young Spaniard, Severiano Ballesteros. Sevi had already won 4 major championships. His first was back in 1979 on British soil at Royal Lytham and St Anne's. This youthful golfer thrilled the crowds with his aggressive and daring play.
One is good, he's got a tailwind, he's got a tailwind. Oh, yes! Oh, no, there, I said it was a make or break hole, and he's done it all the opposite way.
A wayward drive at the 16th puts him in the car park.
Clive Clark, are you down there?
Yes, I'm indeed, Mark, and John Berend of the R&A has just given a ruling that Seve can drop 1 club length clear of the car and then 2 further club lengths from there.
With a very short iron shot, nothing more than a pinch. Oh, that's perfect. Pin high. As this putt for a birdie 3 and a lead of 3 shots. What a 3. 3 strokes clear of the field. Just 2 holes to play.
Leading by 3 shots, many would play the last hole conservatively, but not the ever-popular Seve, the entertainer.
And once again, he's gone miles left, and just look where he's settled. He's 60 yards, 50 yards off the fairway, behind the stand, almost on the left, which is behind the first green. Just eases after it. I do believe he's played it in the front of the green, and that's the first time he's attempted anything approaching caution. That's the reception Tony Jacklin received in 1969, Gary Player in 1974, and now Ballesteros. 3 strokes ahead, but I'm sure he's trying like the Red Devil to get down in 2. Taking the putter out, he's doing all of a sudden tremendous caution from Ballesteros, who's been playing the most extraordinary shots. All of a sudden he's got the old putter out just to give it a bumble up. I bet his old caddy there, Dave Musgrove, heart must be pounding. That's the 3rd shot of Ballesteros. Short, his 18th green. Ever nearer, ever nearer, ever nearer. How's that for a bit of judgment of pace? And that's it. Ballesteros is the champion.
1983, the US Masters. A green jacket and another title, US Masters champion, 1983. The following year, 1984, and Seve's back at the British Open, St Andrews.
Get in the hole, they call. My goodness, it nearly did. So we have a new championship leader for the first time. Seve Ballesteros at 11 under, 1 ahead of Tom Watson.
Ballesteros second at 17. That's a marvelous shot. What a great shot under these circumstances. Seve for a 3 at 17. It's not died yet. That's the 4. 11 under.
Concentrate on this very, very tough shot.
And what scenes they are.
The 18th, Seve, joint leader with Tom Watson, is just short of the green with his drive.
The dust flies. Oh, what a little sweetie.
Slightly uphill. This for a 3. And he's just done it. Oh!
Seve Ballesteros, British Open champion again. 1988, another British Open at Royal Lytham. The 13th and this birdie putt to go 11 under to be joint leader with Nick Price from Zimbabwe.
Five birdies and an eagle in 7 holes.
Seve's approach at the 16th guarantees a single putt.
Oh, look at that. Oh. This hole is certainly one that Seve will remember all his life. But hard enough you might bounce back off the clubhouse. It looked to be a smooth rhythm. Well, over the back. Just chased the cameraman out. But not when you Ballesteros.
Another guaranteed putt, but this one makes Seve Ballesteros 1988 British Open champion.
Seve came along 1979 and showed the whole of Europe we can win Opens, and straight away we suddenly have the Nick Faldos, the Sandy Lyles and so on.
Scotland's Sandy Lyle, this for a birdie 4.
Looks good. Oh yes. What a moment to hold a putt.
At the 15th, this for a 3.
The British Open in 1985 Royal St George's.
And there we go. He joins David Graham in the lead at +1. And he's 2 holes ahead.
The finest moment for some 16 years.
The final hole.
Hit it left, I fancy. And if it misses the thick stuff and just goes off the green. Needs to keep it near the ground and get it firmly into the bank. Oh, he's going to left it, I fancy. Played the wrong club there. He needed a straighter face club. Very good effort.
And this putt is enough to put Sandy Lyle onto the list of British Open champions.
Well done. A 5, he has to wait now.
Augusta, 1988, the US Masters, and this spectacular bunker shot.
I'm actually surprised that ball didn't come down to about 2 feet from the hole. I might have missed it probably.
What did you actually see at the end of that shot?
Oh, I just saw the ball going up, and then obviously the line was good. I was just, this putt actually is about 15 feet long. It doesn't look like it.
His playing partner Ben Crenshaw congratulates Sandy Lyle, US Masters champion 1988.
Nick Faldo, someone who was such a good player, but he knew his technique was not quite good enough, formed an alliance with David Ledbetter, worked tremendously hard on his game, a real technician. Wouldn't suit everybody, but between them, of course, they made a golf swing with, allied to Nick's temperament. He's won, what, 6 majors? Six majors. And again, so that led to, if you like, an era of the coaches.
A gloomy Muirfield in 1987.
Oh, that picks up the tee rather smartly.
Nick Faldo's new Ledbetter and hand swing was surely worth all their time and effort.
I don't see it, but he seemed to be happy with its direction. There it is it? Yes, beautiful drive from Faldo. "17 pars so far. What a time to get a birdie. What a time. Oh, unlucky. Needed one more hop, and that could have gone very close, but a fine shot from Faldo.
A putt for birdie.
Over-borrowed by a long one. He's left himself one of them.
This for his 18th par of the round.
Oh, well done.
Good enough for Nick Faldo to become the 1987 British Open champion. "1990, Nick has this chip at the 18th, a first day round of 67.
And it's a beauty, and he's made it. He's made it.
A perfect start through to a perfect finish to be British Open champion for the second time. Nick Faldo's approach shot to the 9th at another British Open. This time it's 1992, back at Muirfield.
This for the outright lead. And he's got it. He really is on a roll now.
And he's got it. Faldo for a birdie at 15. Looks good. And a 3-shot lead in the Open Championship for Nick Faldo.
The weather changes, but not Faldo's concentration.
Bit of an in-and-out afternoon, certainly, of the waterproofs and the umbrella.
This to be champion. There you have it. Absolutely fantastic. And he's absolutely drained. He's absolutely shattered. The supreme effort.
3 times British Open champion, Nick Faldo. 1996 at Augusta, and Nick Faldo is attempting to win no less than his 3rd green jacket. It's the final round of the US Masters.
Hopefully the ball will check and turn right off one of the mounds in the green, or at worst end up in that little hollow middle back left. There's the flag, middle of that right-hand bunker at the end. Good strike to the safe side of the green. Too far, is it? No, that's a wonderful shot.
The leader gets a warm reception from the crowd as he approaches the final green.
He secured it, was absolutely disaster. Now 4 shots in the lead, and he's trying just as hard to hold this one as he would any of the others he's had today. Confidently rolled and in. That's the way champions do it.
Well, that's what the game's all about.
Although finishing second to Faldo on this occasion, Greg Norman has had many a memorable victory as well as some very memorable shots. Greg Norman, the Shark, a great golfer and a popular star. The final round of the 1986 British Open at Turnberry. Greg has this shot to the 14th.
He's going, hits the flag, and just when he needed it, tremendous applause at the green. You might even think it's gone in the hole, but fortune this time so far is favouring the brave. Don't start rehearsing your winning speech just yet. So Greg Norman, this for a birdie 3 at the 14th after that second shot from the rough, which clattered into the flag and stopped where you see it there. This to get back to level par. Yes, well done. Lovely second.
His second shot to the 17th and another birdie chance.
A lovely easy swing and a glorious result.
And at the last hole, about 160 yards to go.
He's hit a thin one to the right, not one of his Sunday best. It'll just catch the green.
A comfortable lead, and this final putt gives Greg Norman his first British Open title.
Yes, well done. He's done it at last. Greg Norman, 69. And
first Open in front of everybody, especially the gallery up here in Scotland, is the greatest feeling ever.
The British and Irish Ryder Cup team became the European team in 1979.
Going into Europe has resurrected the Ryder Cup and brought it into the modern day, and that was the real key. I helped it along, obviously, but being able to choose from all of Europe as opposed to just Great Britain and Ireland was very much the sensible and intelligent thing to do at the time.
Their first victory, however, came at the Belfry in 1985.
In the end, Torrance had 3 putts to beat North and win the cup.
In 1987, they won in America for the first time at Muirfield Village, Ohio.
Darcy's where?
Darcy's right down the middle of the fairway.
So that's third shot for Crenshaw, into the bunker.
Darcy was now destined to play a vital role, but he too found the bunker, but he held that one-stroke advantage. Eamon Darcy had never won a Ryder Cup game in 11 attempts, and now in a few minutes, with both of them out of the sand and Crenshaw having holed out, he'd have a putt that, if holed, would almost certainly guarantee the cup for Europe. For Darcy, victory by 1 hole. For Europe, a lead of 13 points to 11. The rest was almost a formality. Langer, playing Larry Nelson, found the 18th green and would stay all square, thereby ensuring a tie and retention of the cup. 13.5 points to 11. Minutes later, Ballesteros was putting for victory, for himself and for Europe.
It was a joy to, be amongst the individuals that week and, get the pairings right and be there, at those moments, special moments when matches were won and sometimes lost. They were all special times, Ryder Cups, for me, and there's an enormous amount of emotion went into it, from my point of view anyway. And I know from a lot of the players, we're all a bit different. But they were wonderful times, and I'm sure the players that compete from now on in Ryder Cup, I just hope that they have as much fun out of it as I had.
The Ryder Cup remains the ultimate team competition, the ultimate challenge. Throughout the century there has, understandably, been many memorable golf shots. This one from Hale Irwin in the 1990 US Open, a 45-foot putt with a 5-foot borrow.
Rolling smoothly, on line, and almost unbelievably in the center of the hole. Hale Irwin, who won the Open in 1974 and 79, has at the age of 45 made one of the most dramatic putts in US Open history, and has earned this victory lap around the 18th green at Medina.
It was back in 1991 at Augusta that Ian Woosnam, the small but powerful Welshman, had this putt on the final hole of the US Masters. There's a saying in golf, drive for show, putt for dough, and John Daly certainly puts on a show.
Well, he did.
The US PGA in 1991. The big American invariably causes a stir wherever he is.
He's got a 8-iron, I believe, just in the edge of the left rough. Just wants to get this on the putting surface, and it's a good line. Left center of the green, should be about the right distance.
Watch it
Should be
feed
perfect.
down now. Get up there.
Same place Litsky made his putt from.
Didn't even know if he was in the tournament on Wednesday night. This won't take long.
All being equal, I hope he makes it. I really do. End on a good note right here. Get it.
Good speed. That's a very neatly done putt.
At the 1995 British Open at St Andrews, he finished in the lead at 6 under, and then had to wait and watch Italian Costantino Rocca at 5 under play the final 2 holes.
Unless we see a minor miracle, or a rather large miracle, that is it. And the weird and wonderful John Daly will be the champion. What a thing, eh?
On the 18th, can Daly be caught by this man?
Not quite yet, my darling. It ain't over, but I must say the odds are in your favour. Cruel game. This for a round of 73. If he doesn't hole it, Daly, John Daly, will be the champion. Look at this. Quite extraordinary.
But in the 4-hole playoff that followed, John Daly, to his great credit, just reproduced the form that had already taken him to the top of the leaderboard.
Beautiful putt. Well, if he didn't win it the first time round, he's becoming quite convincing now.
To the edge again. 4-3-4-4 for Daly. And when this little one disappears, it's official. Daly, John Daly, the 1995 Open champion. Off the greens, he's left the flag.
The US Masters in 1994. Jose Maria Olazabal, another great champion of the game. Olazabal's leading at 8 under. This for an eagle.
Good speed. Good speed, eh? That was a fantastic shot from the young man. That really was.
And Jose goes on to win his first green jacket, presented by previous year's winner, Bernard Langer.
Congratulations. Thank you. Great job.
5 years later, 1999, and Olazabal's back in Augusta for another US Masters.
Strike. And it'll just cling on there. That's okay with the 2-shot cushion. He allowed a little bit for adrenaline, I feel, in his choice of club, and I think he was right.
To
or three holes, just a couple of shots slipped away, the westward, and a great reception.
The crowds wait at the 18th to greet Ollie and Greg Norman. This putt and Jose wins the US Masters for a second time. Lon Roberts and Ernie Els, tied at 3 under, went out again in a sudden death playoff in 1994 at the US Open.
Was it like that, which is into the deep rough to the right.
And it's surging up there, up the left again, and hanging on. It should kick out a wee bit even more to the fairway. That's a good shot from Els. At the second extra hole, the 11th on the course. Els with his second shot, the opponent in the bunker. And that is a good shot. That is for length. It's almost perfect. A putt of about 15 feet for a 3. The 24-year-old from Johannesburg, Ernie Els, 2 putts coming down the hill to win the United States Open Championship. Oh my goodness, what is he doing? What is he doing? Well, this one is definitely for the championship. Oh, he's a courageous fellow. Well, congratulations to Ernie Els. The young 24-year-old South African wins the 1994 United States Open Championship.
Ernie Els now at the 17th. There's the green down lower left.
Els was again up at the front in the US Open, this time in '97.
On the right, it's drawing in. He struck it quite beautifully. Oh, and that could be the shot of the championship.
Now this hole ideal for Tom Lehman. A 7-iron out to the right, trying to draw it back. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, how sad. Now he tried to draw it. He went bravely trying to make the birdie that he knew he needed. And what a sad occasion for him.
Els now at the 18th, 7-iron. See the bank quite severe, 15, 16 feet. Grass cut very tight. That's going towards the middle of the green. Perfect distance. Well, how'd you like to have this for possibly the championship? And then do that. Beautifully struck.
Another of golf's big hitters is Tiger Woods. This young man has made a blistering start to his career. At the 1997 US Masters, he's leading the field by no less than 12 shots, so the green jacket looks assured. But Tiger needs a 4 or less at the last hole to record the best ever score at Augusta.
He wants that. I wonder if he'll take the driver. Cut it miles out. Yes, he's going with the driver. Oh no, he's cut that. Somebody shouted. Somebody went. No, well, I thought he'd cut it. He's actually woofed it away up the other fairway. And that's okay. That's where Ian Woosnam chose to go.
Although a wayward drive, he has a reasonable line to the green.
So 2 putts for a 69. 2 putts, all sorts of records. I've seen a few slide down the wrong side from there over the years.
Tiger's parents look on anxiously. Tiger Woods, the 1997 US Masters champion, and with a 69, holder of the lowest ever score at Augusta.
Bernard, I'm reminded of when Tiger won the Masters a couple of years ago by
12 strokes.
12 strokes, and everybody, including myself, and I'm sure you were too, were asked how good, what was going to be the shape of it. And Jack Nicklaus, now Jack is a very intelligent gentleman, and he said he thought Tiger would win more majors than he and Arnold put together.
Wow.
I don't agree with that.
No.
Because golf being the game that it is, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, he's a very, very great player, and he's going to be good for a long time, given good health.
Another young man who looked set for the dizzy heights of golfing stardom was the British amateur Justin Rose in 1998 at the British Open.
Get in, they cry. And they were right. 69.
In 1998, Mark O'Meara proved that it wasn't just the young stars who win majors by taking the British Open and the US Masters.
You don't want to miss the green on the left and have to chip
Just
up.
be right.
Now he's pushed it. Has he? No. Oh, the whiskers. He perfect distance. We saw Furyk, Duval and Nicklaus from there. If you'd spoken of O'Meara being in this position a couple of days ago, I don't think you'd have got many people agreeing with you, but here he goes. This to win. Thank you.
Give your good friend Mark O'Meara his first green jacket.
You got it. Proud to. Thanks. You deserve him well. Is it really that hard?
Yeah, there you go. You'll get used to it in a hurry.
Oh, it's beautiful.
From one great champion to another.
Appreciate it.
Carnoustie plays host to the last British Open of the century, and Frenchman Jean van der Velde is 6 under. He only needs a 6 on the final par 4 hole to win. It is a hole that will never be forgotten. His wayward drive has a lucky bounce.
Oh, you lucky little rascal. I think he's firing right at the clock, maybe aiming at the bunkers. Well, you do.
I don't believe this.
Well, hello, what is going on here?
Scotland's Paul Lawrie, in second place at 3 under, cannot believe his eyes.
Van der Velde still has the luxury of 4 shots. If he gets a 6, that's a double bogey. That'll put him to +5. Now, where is he going now? He's going out left to the front of the green.
Commentator Peter Alice also cannot believe his eyes.
I don't believe it. This is... Oh dear, this is really... This is... I don't know whether she's laughing or she's become hysterical, because I'm not sure what I'm going to do either. No, this really is beyond a joke now. He's gone gaga, because this is quite... I've never seen anything like it before, and to attempt to hit the ball out of there is pure madness. I've got to get down in 2 now. Thank goodness good sense prevails.
Oh, yes.
Finally, Jean sees sense and takes a penalty drop. This is his 5th shot.
Hasn't hit it hard enough.
He needs this to win the championship. This to force a playoff with Paul Lawrie.
Won't you believe it? Oh. Oh.
Well done. Well done.
And it's Paul Lawrie, the local lad, putting to be the last British Open winner of the century.
Laurie's the winner. It may have been very rubbishy early on, but to finish 3-3 to claim the prize is quite magical. But our sympathies to Van der Velde, who had it in the palm of his hand, and before he could close the fingers round the handles of the jug, it was snatched away.
But there was more drama to come in 1999. The US PGA saw a head-to-head between two great young players, Tiger Woods and Sergio Garcia.
That is a 3-wood, Gary, and you can check the stat, but I think he's played these last 3 holes in 3 under for the week.
Oh man, Peter, that went right against that tree, right against it. He'll be barking when he comes up there. Look at this. That's
looks like it's 4.
Yeah, that doesn't have much loft. I think he's going to give it a whack here, ladies and gentlemen. You small children, don't watch this.
Yeah, no, this is through in the left rough.
Look at him. He's quick too. Oh my goodness, he hit it on the green. Oh, that's unbelievable.
But here's Tiger Woods now. A little bit right to left, and just, if it doesn't go in, just leave it on the lip.
That's all he needed.
Tiger's title number 2.
If golf continues to produce stars of this caliber, then we have every reason to remain optimistic about the future.
Sergio has the gift. In actual fact, technically, he's got some improvement left in there.
Only 19-year-old, 3 years behind Tiger Woods.
Yeah, but already he's won the British Boys. He's won the, you know, I mean, he's been brought up in an era of Seve, Chemeral, Athabel, if you like, winners, major winners, and therefore he's thought high and big right from the word go.
St Andrews is universally recognised as the home of golf, and so it is fitting that the first Open of the new century is to be held here. As we have seen, the game of golf has changed radically over the past 100 years. But one thing remains constant, that is the spirit of the game. That spirit and soul remain in trust here at St Andrews.